It's time for Pure Performance.
Get your stopwatches ready. It's time for Pure Performance with Andy Grabner and Brian Wilson.
Hey, this is another episode of Pure Performance. This time a little special. We were supposed to have Brian again on the call. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it. Hopefully have him back on the next call. But I took the opportunity today to actually follow up on a conversation I had a couple of weeks ago with Tom, who is actually with me today, Tom McGonagle. A for Andrew, sorry for that. I want to give you the chance in a couple of seconds to introduce yourself, but I think we met each other at a local meetup here in Boston. It was a DevOps meetup. I talked about metrics-driven continuous delivery. I talked about DevOps. And then you actually came in later on and said, hey, this is a very interesting topic, and you also have something to say, especially from a network side. So without further ado, I want to, give you the chance to introduce yourselves, and then I want to figure out the topic today. I think we said we want to evolve a little bit the idea of metrics-driven NetOps, which is kind of maybe a different angle to what I've been doing in the past with metrics-driven DevOps. So, Tom, maybe a quick word on who you are and, what your passion is about, network operations and all that stuff. Just let us know who you are.
Sure. Thank you very much, Andy. It's a tremendous pleasure to be on your podcast, and it was a tremendous pleasure to see you speak at the give the metrics-driven DevOps speech. And based on that, I asked you to come to my meetup, which is the Boston Jenkins area meetup group, which is the largest Jenkins meetup group in the world, and speak in March. And so this March, you're going to be coming and giving kind of a Jenkins tailored specific presentation on metrics-driven DevOps. And so just seeing you speak and seeing your presentation sparked in me an interest in trying to figure out exactly what metrics-driven NetOps looks like. Mm-hmm. I am currently working as a field systems engineer at F5 Networks, the application delivery controller company. Mm-hmm. And we are undergoing a pretty significant change, and we are implementing DevOps throughout our organization across our cloud subject matter experts, and we are getting questions from our customers about DevOps and NetOps and what that looks like. And for me, one of the tenets of DevOps has always been CAMS, which stands for Culture, Automation, Monitoring, and Sharing. And so, what does the network look like without metrics? Mm-hmm. The stuff that you're doing at Dynatrace is so whiz bang. It's so exciting. It's so interesting. The UFOs that you guys have in the office and the one that you have here in our little conference room are so cool. And why can't network engineers have UFOs and expose the API to their network gear? And why can't we have better metrics in the network space?
Yeah, that's cool. So let me ask you a couple of questions, because I'm not an expert at all in networks, mm-hmm. right? Obviously, I understand that the network makes everything possible because it connects our tiers, it allows us to send data over the wire. I know you, as the company that you work for, F5, you are providing some great tools on different, I think, OC levels, right? Routers, but also, I think, application gateways on the different levels. Mm-hmm. I think you did a quick presentation at the last DevOps meetup in Boston, mm-hmm. and gave a little intro on what you do there. But when it comes to DevOps, for me personally, I believe everything is centered around the application, right? We will write a lot of applications, more than before, and we're pushing applications out faster to a virtual, a physical environment, in the cloud, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And obviously everything is backed by the network, because if there's no network, nobody can get to my apps. The metrics that I'm always looking at are application-specific metrics, response time. How many database statements are executed? How many bytes do we send over the wire? And in case some of these metrics actually go wrong, and if I make a code change and that changes a metric in a way that I believe it's no longer good for the application, because we're sending too many bytes over the wire, we're making too many database calls, we're doing something crazy on the CPU, then I raise the flag and say something is wrong. And that's when the UFO, which is one way of visualizing the state, goes red, for instance. Now, from a network perspective, I would have assumed that you guys have a lot of metrics.
We do. We've had metrics for decades. Yeah. And there's a protocol called Simple Network Management Protocol called SNMP. Yeah. And it exposes a plethora of metrics about the infrastructure, but are they actionable? Are they timely? Are they useful? Are they plottable on a graph? There's these questions. But you mentioned your focus on the application, and I just want to before working at F5, I worked at CloudBees, the Jenkins company, and something I talked to about with all my customers and clients was that software is eating the world. Mark Andreessen's famous quote, and software is eating the network world as well. Yeah. Our ADCs, our F5 big IP devices are incredibly programmable. They have RESTful interfaces, and we are providing Python SDKs and Ansible code to orchestrate and automate the infrastructure. So the typical application development that I think you're picturing is also applicable to the infrastructure as code development, using the Python SDK, using Ansible, using Chef, using Puppet, using Salt to configure the big IPs. And so software is eating the world. It's not only just the application guys, who are the king, right? But it's also eating the network world as well.
So that means what you tell me, if as an application guy, I think by now everybody's understanding that they need to write some kind of infrastructure as code, like how do I deploy a new JBoss if I need it because capacity requires it, right?
Sure.
Or if I have too much load. But you now tell me an additional aspect that I never thought about is also writing infrastructure as code for the underlying infrastructure.
That's right. So if you think of a CI...
Meaning the network. With infrastructure, in this case, I mean the network, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you think of a CI/CD pipeline where you're moving a application from dev to QA to prod, you are going to touch the ADC. You're going to touch the load balancers. Yeah. The load balancers are part of the CI/CD process, and that means that there needs to be orchestration and automation of the load balancers in order to facilitate the CI/CD pipeline.
Now, do you see we see a lot of our people that we talk with and work with? They are trying to move towards something that makes it easier for development teams to push applications through the pipeline and then obviously in production. And they are using platform as a service solutions, whether it's a Cloud Foundry, whether it's an OpenShift, whether it's Microsoft. And the promise of these platforms is you don't need to worry about this anymore. Is this something what you see as well? Are you working with these vendors? Are you working with a Cloud Foundry?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I used to work at OpenShift. I was a site reliability engineer for the OpenShift project, and I supported over 1 million applications, specific tailor-made applications. Yeah. And the pipeline and the support of these applications is very much a piece of our business and a very important piece of our business. We are the edge of the network. We are what controls the application delivery and the application access. And so we have this very, very important place to play in the PaaS space, in the infrastructure as a service space.
Cool. So that means if we talk about the PaaS environments now, again, I would assume if I'm a developer, I don't want to care about this. I use my orchestration engine, and my orchestration layer allows me to say, scale up depending on load, scale up to make sure that a certain response time SLA is met. But should I, as a developer, care about the underlying network, that the infrastructure is there, or should the PaaS provide that for me, automatically configure all the routers?
So that's a phenomenal question, and so I'd love to debate this. Actually, have literally a debate with you on this. Yeah. I see this. I see both sides of the story. So part of me says the application developer who is in charge of an application should be aware of the capabilities of a modern ADC, in that they can tune the TCP and the HTTP protocols to service their applications and to the best of their abilities. They can implement caching, and they can implement big TCP windows and pipelines and implement SSL on the ADC and on the load balancer. They can do all these things. And then so half of me says yes, the application developer is going to, the responsibility of the network engineer is going to be shifting left to the application developer.
Yeah.
And then the other side of me sees exactly what you were kind of pointing out. Maybe the application developer shouldn't be aware of this. I guess it depends on the maturity of the product, the maturity of the individual, and the capabilities of the organization.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
So I think it's interesting. I did a webinar recently. It was called DevOps for Operations Engineers, right? What does DevOps for Ops in general mean? And basically, I came to exactly the same two conclusions. I think the future for the traditional ops teams, they have two options. Either shifting left, meaning they become part of the application delivery team, which actually goes towards a no-ops environment. There's no traditional ops anymore, but ops is just part of the application delivery team, and they just give their expertise and make sure that the environment is there. Or the other way would be becoming ops as a service. That means for a large organization, they provide additional easy-to-consumable services to the application team so that they can run their applications on the infrastructure. So either become part of the application teams or become more what Amazon and Microsoft and Google are right now, basically very providers of infrastructure, easily manageable and controllable through REST APIs. I think these are the two things.
So I think that was perfectly put. I think you perfectly put it. I think we're getting closer to the answer. I think it's a combination of the two. I think just the simple fact that we have infrastructure or operations as a service, you don't have to worry about if the application developer doesn't have to worry about something like a VLAN or routes or just the network nitty gritty. It allows them to then orchestrate at the level, at the layer 7 level, at the application layer level, and it allows them to interact with something like a big IP at the layer 7 level and focus on what they're good at, and that includes orchestration. I would argue. I think if we keep pulling on this thread around continuous delivery and what that looks like, and how the network plays with the continuous delivery model, and if we could just kind of circle back to what type of metrics we need out of a continuous delivery pipeline that's focused on the network. What does that look like?
Yeah. So, what I think it has to look like, from an application, again, I represent totally the application development team, right? Because that's just more I feel comfortable with. So what I believe the application teams can deliver and should deliver with tools like Dynatrace or any other tool where you can get application-specific data, we can tell you on a transaction-by-transaction basis, feature-by-feature, application-by-application, whatever you want to call it, how many bytes are most likely being sent over the wire. If we have some production monitoring data to know how many people at any given point in time are using that feature, we can tell you how much bandwidth we actually need and how much data we send to which endpoints. And I believe the magic of taking this data and putting it into the pipeline is the following. If I know how my production environment looks like now, let's say 80% of my users are using these two features, and I know exactly how many bytes we sent over the wire at which point during the day and during the week. And if we now make a change, so if you're pushing a change through the pipeline saying, we are changing that feature that is used by 80% of the people, and we are now requiring 20% more round trips between the application server and the web server, between the application server and the database server. And if I have this information and give it to my network team, then they should be proactively figuring out, okay, what does this really mean? Is this a good idea or a bad idea? How do I need to configure my infrastructure? How can I automate that? How can I even maybe automatically provision infrastructure depending on the load patterns that we have, right? And I think this is then really nicely playing into the DevOps story, where the cool or the perfect world would be that my infrastructure is automatically understanding the patterns from the application, from the end users, and then providing the infrastructure exactly that it needs. It may be even able to anticipate certain load patterns based on historical data, based on certain events that happen in the world right now, and then automatically provision the right infrastructure and the right network configuration and bandwidth.
I love it. I've never thought of that before. I never made the connection for the feedback loop. I'm sure you're familiar with, or maybe your listeners are or not, Gene Kim's 3 ways, and the second way is continuous intelligence.
Exactly, that's what it is.
And so it's the automatic feed. So APM, and I apologize. APM stands for Application Performance Monitoring or Metrics.
No, Application Performance Monitoring.
Monitoring.
Or management. We actually recently changed. I think we coined the new term DPM, Digital Performance Management, because in the end, yes, it's about applications, but we are helping people to do digital transformation through applications. But whatever the terminology it is, we have an application and end user centric view. Why end user? Because we also capture metrics from the end user, how end users interact with the application. Talking about the load patterns, where do people come from? Do we send the bytes to the local user community in Boston here?
Right.
Or do most people come from somewhere else, and therefore we have to think about total different things, right? We need to think about a CDN, we need to think about network bandwidth, and latency becomes an issue. So yeah.
But I just love the idea that the APM technology is orchestrating in configuring the network, and provisioning new resources, provisioning new servers at an ad hoc basis. There's a expression that floats around F5, and it's source of truth. Have you ever heard of this? Oftentimes GitHub is the source of truth. But what we're talking about is Dynatrace being the source of truth, and there's various application characteristics happening. For example, it's just poor performance. Well, you know what? We need to autoscale. Maybe we rely on AWS autoscaling, but we supplement it with application metrics that automatically spin up new instances, provision them, and add them to the big IP in an automated way. Yeah. I love that story.
Yeah,
I think it's very fascinating.
It's smart scaling, right? I mean, that's what it is. Yeah. Because if you just scale up because you see performance goes up, that's like you have a bad tooth, and the only thing you do is you eat more Advil.
Right.
But you don't fix in the root cause of the problem.
That's right.
Right? Mm-hmm. This is kind of the idea. And I think, so again, coming back to the metrics-driven story that I want to tell also at your meetup, it's about understanding what potential impact I have with a code change that I'm pushing through the pipeline, through the continuous delivery pipeline. If I know I'm changing the feature that is used by 80% of my user base under peak load on a Friday afternoon, if that's the peak load time, and I'm changing it in a way that I require 10% more database queries, I require to send 50% more bytes because I changed some images on that page now to high resolution instead of what it was before, then I need to make sure that this information, before I push this change into production, ends up with the people that need to make sure that the environment is provisioned correctly. In a perfect way, as I said earlier, in the future, hopefully, in the soon future, not the distant future, maybe the orchestration layers of the world that we build or use will automatically take care of this, because they look at historical load patterns, they look at what changes come down the pipeline, they can look at Jenkins and see which features are changing in which way, and then they can automatically make sure that the infrastructure is provisioned in the right way. And I think the right way is essential in both ways. It shouldn't be too less, but also not too much infrastructure, because in the end we have to pay for it too, right? If you over provision.
I love it. I love the idea that the APM is the orchestrator. Is it, not to give away the too much insider information, but is that on the roadmap for Dynatrace?
The thing is we have all the data, right? We have. I'm not sure if we become the actual orchestrator, even though we can, because we have a concept of incidents and we can trigger events. But I wonder if it is like we take our data, but then we need to pull in other data as well from folks like you guys, right? From the cloud providers, and then based on that make a good decision. We within Dynatrace, when we actually implemented our current SaaS-based offering, we built our own orchestration layer, because back then when we started there was nothing like a Kubernetes, like a message server. So we built it on our own, and what we do, we actually look at APM data and infrastructure data, and then basically we automated everything that the normal ops team would do. So we see a shortage in resources and we scale up. It doesn't help. Well, either we scale up a little more. If this doesn't solve the problem, that's probably not the root cause that we have. Then we look deeper and say, what is the actual root cause? And instead of endlessly putting more resources on the problem, we actually alert and make sure the problem actually gets addressed and fixed. So this is what we actually did. We built into our orchestration engine the logic of what a normal ops engineer would do, an application engineer would do, They have the run books. We automated all the run books by automatically looking at all the metrics, understanding the dependencies of the different systems, and then taking certain actions to get the system back to the healthy state.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's continuous intelligence.
That's what it is. Yeah.
It is. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
What a great design.
So we wanted to talk about. I mean, I think when we sat down before we had this meeting, before we started recording, we said metrics-driven NetOps. So I know this is obviously what we just talked about. This is, I think, something where the industry is moving towards, right? Some were leading the way, so we already do some of this internally. I'm sure some of the unicorns are doing it already. Your exposure to current operation teams and network teams, what do they do right now, and what would be your recommendation of kind of leveling them up a little bit? What can current teams that have been doing their job over the last couple of years always the same way, what do they need to learn? What are the first steps?
Well, so, just in a very broad sense, I would say it's automation, and in a very general sense, and I'm going to get very specific. They are very reactive. They are, but when I started my career, I worked for the Federal Aviation Administration, and I worked in their operations center, and I just monitored systems. We had all these screens, and it was a NOC, it was a network operations center, and we get alerts, through this NetMail technology, and we'd get alerts through these graphical user interfaces, and then we'd react to it. Yeah. And there needs to be more automation and self-healing, and so, there's various things that can go wrong on a big IP device. For example, the network itself can collapse. There can be someone can trip over a cable or unplug it, or there could be a software bug in the big IP, or there could be any host of various challenges. But what we need to do as a field, and I mean field as in the network operations as an entire industry, what we need to do is we need to have more automation. And there's literally hundreds of thousands of network engineers in the world today who are doing all of their work on the command line, and that's just an ancient and old practice. They need to move towards an automation strategy. They need to become more comfortable. We have an expression that we use at F5 called a super NetOps person, but I talk about them more as site reliability engineers. Mm-hmm. And if you're familiar with site reliability engineers, they are what is referred to as T-shaped employees. So in the case of a network-focused site reliability engineer, they're going to have depth in networking and security, and then they're going to have breadth in agile and metrics and monitoring and automation. And this T-shaped employee gives them the ability to really service various modern-day cloud-based problems. Mm-hmm. And once again, the key to that T-shaped employee is automation. They need, the typical network engineer that's not doing automation now needs to level up. Mm-hmm.
And I guess the challenge is, and this was also a challenge, obviously, on the application side, maybe on the let's say in the traditional ops side, right? When we talk about automation, it means people have the fear that they're automating away their own jobs.
That's right. That's the biggest challenge.
Yeah. And so, but the question is, what can we do to take their fear? Because I don't think they're automating away their jobs. I believe their jobs are changing, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah. Well, I was talking about this earlier today. I believe what we need to do is we need to appeal to people's self-interest. There's an expression there's a phrase, like a turn of phrase that I use, that the big network factory in Boston is going away. There's going to be a lack of jobs in the next 5 years in the network operations space. There's going to be less and less jobs. These guys need to level up. They need to become site reliability engineers. They need to have cloud skills. They need to leverage their networking skills and supplement it with agile monitoring and automation skills. And like my alliteration around this, this factory, this network factory leaving Boston is meant to appeal to their sense of self-interest. And so we have to have this 1-2 punch where we appeal to their self-interest, and then then F5, for example, gives them a path to learn mm-hmm. those skills. Mm-hmm. And we give them study guides, and we give them players guides, and we give them podcasts, and we give them how-to videos, and we provide code, and we provide examples, and we get out and we market, and we get out and we talk, and we get out and we help, and we just help these guys get to where they need to get to.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly difficult proposition.
Yeah, it is. Well, especially, there's always, it depends on the personality too. A lot of people are eager to learn, do something new, but some people are just resistant to change, right? And they're comfortable in the way they've been doing things over the last 10, 20 years.
That's right.
And it's a general problem that we have as a human society, or as humans. So I like the fact that you are, what you personally do with the meetups, right? You are spreading the word about what's new, what's cool, what is the direction you could go.
Well, thank you.
And you're educating people, right?
Right. So I was a teacher at a junior college in Boston for 3 years, and my grandfather was a teacher, and so it's in my blood, and just. This is my life's work. I didn't at the beginning of the show. I didn't mention, but I do have 10 years of DevOps experience. My DevOps birthday just passed. It was January 17th. It was when I first started using Puppet. And I've basically been putting in 16-hour days ever since, and so I have this tremendous amount of experience with DevOps, and I'm incredibly passionate about it, and I want to be a community organizer, and I want to help people, and I was raised to help people. I mentioned to you earlier that I have a disabled sister, and I was raised to help people, and I'm here to help. And if anyone wants to reach out to me, they can, and you can reach me at t.mcgonagle@f5.com and just get in touch, and I'll give you a call back, and we can figure out what you need to do and what you need help with, and I'm here to help.
That's really cool. Wow. So, you know what? I think this is a perfect time to actually conclude our session, maybe, right?
Okay.
We talked. I think we learned, or we created this new vision for people out there.
It was an excellent discussion, Andy. Thank you so much.
It was really cool, right? So
yeah.
Metrics, we can use these metrics that we get from the application teams to give the direction of what we need from the infrastructure, network side, from the resource provisioning, but in this case, obviously, from the network side. I know you said there's a lot of effort that goes into making infrastructure and especially network automatable, right? Part of infrastructure is code. That's great. We figured out that we need that traditional IT or network teams can go two directions: either to become part of the application team, put in their knowledge into these teams so that they can build better apps in the future with the right mindset and with the right knowledge about the network in mind. The other option is moving towards an ops as a service or network as a service, whatever you want to call it. Both directions need heavy automation. And then don't be afraid, but actually encourage change, right? Go out there, see what's new, go to the local meetup scenes. Because, I love the meetups. I know we are fortunate here in Boston because there's so many meetups. So many nice ones. Yeah. And I know we are doing one again in March.
March 8th, I think.
March 8th, yeah. And it's amazing. You are the largest Jenkins
meetup group in the world. Yeah. Isn't that cool?
That's awesome, yeah. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for presenting. Yeah. It's going to be a great presentation. I hope anyone in the Boston area can make it. And we do have sponsors. We have food, and where we have our meetups is literally next door to a liquor store. So you're welcome to get something to drink and listen to Andy and harass them or whatever it takes to get you out to the meetup. I'd love to see everyone there. And then just as an aside, on the days of the meetups, we have what's something called a DevOps dojo, which is a safe place for mentoring and learning. And Andy's going to be there on March 8th from 12 to 7, and I'm going to be there from 12 to 7. And we're just there to help people learn about DevOps and learn about automation and learn about infrastructure as code and all that good stuff, and Jenkins as well.
Cool. Then I also want to do one more shout out. I think I mentioned to you in an email in June. We have a big Agile conference coming to Boston, the Agile Testing Days. I know these guys from Europe. They've been running this conference in Berlin for a couple of years. Now they make it to Boston. Jenkins will be a big topic, CI/CD, DevOps. So that's a great way.
That sounds fantastic. Yeah, that sounds really great. That's a great shout out. Yeah. I'm definitely going to be there.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Hey, thank you so much. And I know we will do another session because we have some additional ideas we want to discuss.
Thanks so much, Andy.